first night. Something cold breathed through the keyhole and touched my cheek. I had leaned close because the door wouldn't open, and I wanted to see the other side. I felt it, a slow exhale, like someone steadying themselves. It made a soft sound. I jerked back and knocked my shoulder against the hall wall. I stood there with my phone light on, pointing at the brass keyhole. It was an old house. It was late. I'd just inherited the place from my aunt and moved in with a mattress and a crate. Everything else was in storage. The house smelled like dust and lemon oil. Floorboards under my feet felt like ribs. The door was at the end of the upstairs hall. Narrow door, old paint, heavy. No knob. Just a little iron keyhole and a key plate. It looked like it had been there forever. I tried the antique keys in the kitchen drawer when I moved in. None of them fit. The door didn't even rattle. It felt like part of the wall. I pressed my ear to it. I held my breath. Someone on the other side took them. In, out. In, out. Slow, patient, human. I whispered, "Hello?" The next exhale warmed. Not warm like a hairdryer. Warm like breath. It touched the edge of my ear and went away. I jumped again. I didn't have the stomach for ghosts. I hadn't slept well in months, even before the house. Night work. I left things undone all the time. I'd inherited the house because no one else wanted it. That was how my aunt put it in her letter. "Sam, you're the only one who will keep it straight. Keep it on the tax rolls. You always finish things." That line made me laugh out loud when I read it. I never finished anything important. I went back to the kitchen and got a piece of printer paper and tape. I cut a small square and held it flat over the keyhole. I felt stupid, but I held it steady and waited. The paper ballooned out with a long exhale. It fell flat on the inhale. It puffed again. It was so regular. I whispered, "You have got to be kidding me." I taped the square over the keyhole and watched it rise and fall. My heart was fast. My fingers shook. I took my phone and opened voice memos and set it by the base of the door, the mic facing up. I lay down on the hall runner with my head against the wall and watched the paper. In, out, in, out. My chest wanted to match it. I blew out air and tried to slow myself down. The paper didn't care. It kept its own pace. After 10 minutes, I lifted a corner of the paper and spoke into the hole. "Who are you?" I whispered. Nothing back. Just breath. I said, "I'm going to close this." I covered the hole again and went for more tape. I taped it hard. Cross strips. "May." Then I rolled a towel and pushed it along the base of the door. I chewed 2 pieces of gum until my jaw hurt and pressed the gum into the seams around the key plate. When I finished, I sat back on the floor and faced it. The tape bowed with each slow exhale and sucked in on the inhale. I hit record again. I pulled my knees up and sat there for a long time. When my phone battery hit 20%, I stopped and moved to the kitchen. I made coffee. There were no mugs unpacked, so I drank it from a measuring cup. Around 2, I texted Ray because she's the one who always says, "Show me, don't tell me." She was up anyway. We used to stay up late cramming, then drinking, then just staying up because we didn't like the dark. I wrote, "Stuck door is breathing." She sent back a skull. Then, pics or it didn't happen. I sent a video. It was of the paper waving. You could hear it too, even on tinny phone speakers. A long inhale. A long exhale. The little crackle of tape. Ray called me right away. "That's a person," she said, voice sharp. "Is someone in there? Is there a crawl space?" "No," I said. "There's no room. It's a wall." It's the end of the hall. The blueprint. I stopped. I didn't have the blueprints yet. I had a folder of my aunt's stuff, keys, an old Polaroid album, a copy of her will. The house had secrets. I felt stupid saying that. But it did. Ray said, "Stay on the line. I'm going to listen with you." She stayed on while we both breathed and listened to the tape ripple. "I can hear it," she said finally. "Jesus, that's so human." I turned my phone to the gap by the floor. I moved the towel with my foot. Exhale, inhale. We were both quiet. After a while, she said, "Call the police?" We both laughed because who do you call for a breathing door? I said, "It's 3 a.m. She said, "Yeah." About then, something else happened. The breaths timed up. I felt it before I understood. My chest started matching without me meaning to. In sync. I put my fingers under my jaw and felt my pulse. A slow beat under my skin. Thump on exhale. Pause. Thump. Then inhale. I counted. I counted my beats and the rise of the tape. They matched for a whole minute. My mouth went dry. Then it broke. On the next exhale, there was the smallest sound mixed in with the air. A hush. A shape. It shaped my name. Sam. Not loud. Not dramatic. The way a kid tries out a word in a grocery store and hopes he'll turn. My hand slipped. The phone dropped. Yaka. Ray heard the whisper through the line and started cursing in my ear. I tore the tape off and backed down the hall. I don't know why taking the tape off felt like the right thing. It felt like pulling plastic off a face. I stood by the stair rail and listened. The breath didn't get louder. It stayed steady. I didn't sleep. I kept watch. The weirdest part was how ordinary the rest of the house felt. The bathroom tap ran the way taps run. The fridge made little clicks. Once the heat clicked on and the vents thumped, the door breathed like it was no big deal. I went back at dawn. I pressed my palm over the keyhole and felt my skin fill. Warm, then cool. I covered it again with paper and tape, and then more tape, and I went to work. I don't remember much of that day. The next night I brought a baby monitor from Ray. She used it once for her sister's kid. We plugged the base into an outlet in the hall and put the monitor with the camera on a chair facing the keyhole. We tested it. I walked downstairs and listened to the tiny speaker. The breath came through, clear as a person sleeping. It made a little hiss each time it hit the mic. The camera showed the paper moving up and down. I watched it like television. I ate chips standing up and watched. At midnight, for no reason I can explain, I pulled the plug out of the wall. The power light on the base went dark. The speaker kept going. The breathing did not stop. It seemed louder in the static, like being underwater. I took the batteries out, because, fine, maybe it was on battery. The speaker still hissed and breathed. I wanted to throw it. Instead, I put it on the stairs and stared. We tried stuff. We leaned a bookcase against the door and pushed it until the wood bit the wall. The breaths made the shelves buzz. I taped the edges again with more layers, and then plastic wrap over that, and then duct tape over the plastic. I chewed gum until my jaw hurt and plugged the keyhole clean. The breath pressed the gum into a little bubble. It glittered with spit and dust. Ray said we should get a locksmith. I agreed. She left at 3 and I recorded until sunrise. Later, with sleep in my teeth, I played the file back and went through it. I skipped to each wave peak and named it. 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 4 seconds inhale. 2 hours, 13 minutes and 9 seconds exhale. 2 hours, 14 minutes and 21 seconds whisper. Indistinct. 2 hours, 16 minutes and 10 seconds whisper. Sam. I tried to tell myself the breath caught the syllable by accident, that it was air and pipes and wishful thinking, but it said my name like it knew me. The locksmith came the next day. He was older, big hands like a farmer. He knocked on the door frame twice before he touched the lock. He had a box of bits and picks and a scope that looked like something a dentist would bring to a picnic. He lifted his eyebrows at the key plate. "Where's the key?" "No key," I said. "My aunt never found it." He set the scope up and looked through the keyhole. He touched the handle that wasn't there. He touched the hinges. He pressed his palm flat the way I had. He put his head close with his ear to the wood. He listened. His face changed a little. He didn't say anything. He stepped back and rubbed his jaw. "You have the blueprints?" he asked. "In the office," I said. The office was just a spare room with a desk and a pile of folders. I found the rolled tube with the county stamp and the date from the 80s. He spread it on the hall floor and put a screwdriver on the corner to hold it down. He traced the upstairs with a finger. He stopped at the end of the hall. There was a wall. No door. No closet. No space behind it. Just a load-bearing line and notes that said, "Solid fill." He looked at the door and then at me. "I don't open holes in other people's mistakes," he said. "You opened holes for my aunt," I said. "You changed her locks all the time. She wrote your number in the kitchen." He shook his head. "Not that one." He packed his tools without touching them, the way you pack around a spider. He wrote his number on a card and squeezed it into my hand. "You'll figure it," he said. He left like a man who knows to leave. That afternoon I looked for the old family album. I don't know why. I dug through the closet in my aunt's bedroom and found a tin of photos. I spread them on the bed. Holidays. Food. People I hadn't called in years. One Polaroid caught me. I was 13 in it, sitting on the stairs, looking bored with a new haircut. A little boy sat next to me, legs swinging. He was holding an inhaler like a toy car. He was grinning past the photographer's shoulder. I had a hand on the back of his shirt like I was keeping him from falling. His name came up into my mouth before I was ready for it. Eli. My brother. I almost said he was my cousin. That's the kind of lie you tell yourself when you have to keep moving. He had a small scar on his lip from when he fell into the coffee table. He hated sleeping alone. He had a wheeze and a laugh that broke apart and came back twice as loud. We didn't talk about Eli much. Not after. My mother moved us to an apartment and then moved again. We said he got sick. We said he was at a sleepover and didn't take his inhaler. We said he went to the creek. We said a lot of versions. We told the one that made sense that day. I didn't like that I was thinking of him because of the door. I went to the hall anyway. I sat on the floor with my back to the wall and cradled the baby monitor like a radio. It was cold in that spot. My knees ached. I spoke low so it didn't feel like I was calling anything. "I'm sorry," I said, with my mouth to the tape. The breath warmed through my palm. That was the first time I knew it was listening. I tried to lie. I didn't leave. The air went cold enough, I felt it in my teeth. I pulled my hand away and shook it out. I whispered, "Okay." I tried to trade. "If you stop, I'll stay." The breath kept going. I tried a threat. "I'll tear this door out and brick it up. I'll pour concrete in the keyhole." It went colder, then nothing, then a hard push of air that made the tape bulge and click. The door sounded like it sighed. I prayed. I hadn't prayed since I was a kid, and my mother told me it was like filing a report. I tried anyway. I said the short prayer she made us say at the table. Then I said I didn't know what happened in this house, and that if something needed me to face it, I would stand here as long as it took. I said Eli's name once. Quiet. The next breath matched my pulse again. Slow, then slowing me, then quicker until I felt anxious with it, until I said, "Stop." It stopped matching and settled back. I pulled a chair into the hall and made a camp. Thermos. Charger. My folding knife. Stupid to bring. The house got very small. It was just me and the door, the stairs behind me, the front door with its chain, and Ray's voice now and then, because I didn't want to be alone with the silence between breaths. At 2 in the morning, when I was the most tired, a key turned from inside the lock. It was the plain, clean sound of metal turning metal. The pins clinked. My neck hair did what it does. I saw the key in my head, old and long, turning inside an old brass throat. The tape moved with each exhale, and the key moved with each click. I put my hand against the wood and said, "Don't." I didn't know who I was talking to. The key turned anyway, a little more. The tape ballooned hard enough to pop the gum. I heard it hit the inside of the key plate with a wet sound. The turning stopped. I breathed again. When sunlight came, I made eggs in a frying pan and ate them out of the pan and stood at the sink because I didn't want to sit, as if sitting would make me miss a cue. I remembered my aunt always fussing at that door. She would dust around it with a brush. She'd thump it with her knuckles like a joke. She'd say, "Don't go where you're not invited, Sam. You know better." She said that to me a lot. I found a note in my aunt's desk. It was a bill for some work done in that hall 30 years ago. Paneling and fill. There was a number for a contractor with a last name I remembered from church. I called it disconnected. I drove to the address on the invoice because I needed to move. There wasn't anything there anymore. A grocery store stood with big, bright fruit in the window. When I came back, the house was quiet. I walked straight to the door and held my palm over the hole. A breath in and out, like it had waited for me to check. That evening, Ray sat with me. She brought a toolbox she borrowed from her neighbor. She said, "We're doing this." We took pictures of the hinges and the plate. We pried at the plate first, easy, so we didn't crack anything. The screws wouldn't catch. They were painted over and half rotten. She held the light and I scraped paint out with a razor. We spoke to keep our courage up. "Remember the time I fell through my porch?" she said. "You fell through your porch because you let it rot," I said. "You keep things," she said. "That's your flaw." "That's generous," I said. We got 2 screws out. The plate was still stuck. The breath warmed my fingers as I worked. It chilled when I lied by saying, "We're not going to open it." I tested it again because I'm stubborn. "I didn't forget," I said. "Cold." "I didn't leave him," I said. So cold my skin prickled. "I'm sorry," I said. Warm. Ray looked at me. She frowned. "What is this?" "My brother," I said. I hadn't said his name out loud in years. "Eli." "What happened?" she asked. "He had an attack," I said. "That used to be the whole story." I said the rest. "I put him in the closet. Here. To calm down. We were supposed to go outside and I was on the phone. He got scared. I told him to stay in there for 10 minutes so he wouldn't wander. I said I'd be right back. I couldn't feel my hands. "I left," I said. "I left." Ray was quiet. She didn't say it was okay. She didn't say it wasn't my fault. That was good. The breath warmed my hand where it touched the door. I took my hand away. I needed both of them. We tried the hinges next. We jammed the flathead under the bottom hinge pin and tapped it with a shoe because we didn't have a hammer. It didn't move. We tried the top one. It shrieked a little and then shifted. The breath sped up. "Okay," I said. "Okay, I'm here." I put my shoulder under the hinge to help. That was when the baby monitor, which I'd left on the stairs unplugged and batteryless, crackled. The breath came through, closer, like the speaker was in my ear. There was a small voice with it. Not words. The sound kids make when they're trying not to cry too loud. It made Ray swear again. We didn't stop. We got the top pin out. We got the bottom pin halfway. We worked it side to side. I tasted blood where I bit my lip. The breath came hot now and made the tape swell and stick to my fingers. I peeled it off and pressed my eye to the keyhole. I saw darkness and a small shape, and then something like light moved across it, as if someone inside had shifted knees. "I can't," Ray said, backing away. "I can't, Sam." "I can," I said. My voice sounded calm. It was the same voice I had used with Eli when I put him in the closet and said, "Be a big kid." I hate that voice. I grabbed the hinge pin with a pair of pliers and yanked. It came free so fast I fell on my ass. The door listed toward me but didn't open. It stuck in the frame like it was glued there. "Crowbar," I said. Ray tossed me one from the box. The breath hit my lips when I leaned close. It was hot now. It sounded like effort. Deep inhale. Long, slow release. The way we tell people to breathe when they panic. I wedged the bar at the bottom and pried. The wood cracked. The breath sped up again. The baby monitor spat static like rain. I pried again. The frame gave an inch. The door creaked inward. A dark smell came out. Dust and old cloth and something sweet, like a pillow that's never seen sun. "Stop," Ray said. "You sure?" "No," I said. "Move." I pushed with my shoulder once, hard. The latch ripped free. The door swung in 6 inches and stuck. I pushed again. Wood splintered. Something inside scraped the floor. I thought it was a toy. My stomach turned. I pushed harder. The door gave. It opened. Inside was a narrow space the size of a shower stall. No window. No light. Old wood-paneled walls. A little bed made from a board and blankets. A gray stuffed bear with one ear. A pile of books. A coloring book with one page finished wrong. A plastic dinosaur with rubbed eyes. And on the little bed, where a head would be, an inhaler. Blue plastic. Cracked. It lay on its side, like it had rolled there and never been picked up. Next to it, under the bear, I saw a note. I knew the note before I unfolded it. I knew the paper. I knew the handwriting. Mine, huge and loopy, the way kids make letters before they learn to hold their hand steady. 3 words. Be right back. I had drawn a smiley face with the colon eyes and the wrong kind of mouth. I put my hand on the bed and it was warm. It shouldn't have been. The breaths filled the space. They were around my head now, not behind the door or through the keyhole, but in the box of air. They were steady, human, close enough to fog onto my face. I wanted to run. I wanted to tear the bed out and throw it into the yard and set it on fire. I wanted to crawl into the cot and lie down and not get up. "Sam," Ray said. She stood in the hall with her sweatshirt sleeves pulled over her hands. She looked like she wanted to grab me and also not touch anything at all. "Say something." I had the inhaler in my hand and didn't remember picking it up. It was cold at first and then it warmed like skin. I wiped dust off it with my thumb. The sticker with the instructions had curled up at the edges. I pressed it and it didn't move. Dead. I put it down carefully. I slid the note into my pocket because I couldn't leave it on the bed. Oh, the breath was all around me, in me, like we were sharing a small air supply. I sat on the floor of the little room with my feet in the hall. I looked at the walls. Someone had drawn a house with 4 square windows on the paneling, rough, with a stick person in the yard. The lines had been gone over again and again until they were dark. I counted 11 layers of tape around the key plate on my side. On the other side, no plate. Just a hole someone had drilled long ago and never filled. I spoke. Quiet. The way you talk when someone has their head on your shoulder. I did that, I said. I put you in here and I left you. I told you to breathe. I promised I'd be right back. I lied. The air cooled. Slow. Not a snap. Like someone took a step away. I'm here now, I said. I know that doesn't fix it. I know what I did. I pressed my palms together and bowed them into my mouth and did the thing I didn't do when I was 13. I cried until my throat hurt. I cried the way I did in the school bathroom that night when it was too late and the house was dark and my mother had the phone pressed to her head and no one would look at me. When I stopped, the breaths were light. He was tired. That was what it felt like. Thready. The way a kid sounds when they fall asleep with a cold. I said the only promise I could make. I'll tell them, I said. I'll tell the truth. I'll make right what I can. The air warmed. Do you want me to close it? I asked. Or do you want me to keep it open? The next inhale came cold, and the exhale came warm. That was an answer. I understood it the way you understand when someone squeezes your hand twice. I nodded like he could see. We took the door off the hinges and carried it down the stairs. It was heavy and scraped my shin and I didn't care. We set it in the yard against the maple. I opened the windows in the hall and the little space and let the stale air out. It felt like a mouth opening after a fever breaks. I called my mother. I had her number at the bottom of my phone list, a name I hadn't touched in months. She answered on the 3rd ring. I told her where I was. I told her what we found. I told her I was going to the police in the morning and tell them what I had done when I was 13. She got quiet. She said my name, not angry. She said, I know. Then she said, I couldn't bear you. Not after. That was my failing. And then she hung up. Ray stayed. She took the baby monitor because she didn't want to hear it on her floor forever. We sat on the stairs until late. The breaths slowed and slowed until they sounded like someone sleeping in a warm room. They matched nothing except themselves. I folded the note again and again until it was a small square, and then opened it and smoothed it and slid it back under the bear where I found it. I took the inhaler and put it on the sill in the full light. I said goodnight like I used to when I was small, and the dark made me believe in shapes. I didn't seal anything. I didn't pour concrete. I left the space open, and I sat right there on the floor and I owned it until the light came through the hall window and touched my feet. Then I stood up and took a breath of my own, in and out, and went to make coffee, and waited for the hour when I could drive to the station and tell them what was behind my door. I ended it that way because there wasn't anything else to do. I hope you enjoyed that one. Sometimes these stories stay with you longer than you expect. If you'd like to hear more, subscribe for the next night's story. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe watch another before the lights go out. See you in the next one.